G'day. Today we're doing a overhaul on a V8 Trimatic, and this one's going in a hot rod. So we haven't got the vehicle in, so we're just going to do a couple of little upgrades on it. There's not much you can really improve on them to make them real heavy duty, but we've ordered a 2.5 high stalled converter for it, and we're just about to pull it apart. This here's the servo cover. Just whiz that off. And we've got the electric kick down. You can see how much muck's in the servo cover. And the valve body. And we've got the separator plate. And we've got the extension housing off. And you can see the output shaft, the case bush is pretty worn. And now we're going to just take off this servo cover, servo. There is a fairly strong spring there, so there'll be a fair bit of muck under that as well. There we go. And we've just got this spanner that we ground out just so you can get it in there, because not much room in there for a normal size spanner. Just take the modulator off. It's pretty tight. And there'll be a little pin there. You can modify if you've got low vacuum with that pin. You just shorten it or lengthen it depending on what it is or what you need. And also you can see a little screw in there, making that an adjustable modulator. So someone's backed this one right out, probably to make it shift a little bit softer. Alright. Now in here we've got a sleeve, the modulator sleeve. Just pull that out like so. It's got a bit of muck on there. and you can see the modulator. And we're just going to pull this little valve out here too. So with a pair of side cutters, you just pull a pin out, and then again with a pair of circlip pliers, you just put it in that little hex, and you got to sort of work it, because it won't come out straight away, especially if it hasn't been out for a while. There we go. Spring is on the inside. Okay. Now we've got the governor valve and the speedo gear. Speedo gear we just pull off like that. And we've got two 7/16 bolts we take off on the governor. You can see one of the valves is just thrown out by weight as it starts to spin on the output shaft as you're driving. It'll throw out that weight and tell the vehicle is moving. Over here we've got a spring in the valve, so it's always a good idea to make sure that they've got a nice sharp edge on there. It has a cleaning effect if there's any muck in there. Okay, and sometimes in here on this governor support there'll be a little filter just in the bigger hole there. There's a little gasket. To measure the end float, you push your hand on the output shaft and on the input shaft, and the whole guts of the transmission will move left and right. So what we do is we just put a pair of verniers on it here, rest it on there, and measure how far it is from there while pushing the input shaft and the output shaft together, and you'll get a pretty good reading of what the end play of it is. Alternatively, you can get a dial indicator and set it all up. So on this one we've got about 15 thousandths of an inch end play. Now the outside bolts on the bell housing, they're holding the whole section to the case. The inside ones are just holding the pump. So when you're putting the pump back together, you have to use an alignment tool which aligns the bush in there with the stator support there. So if you're going to pull a pump apart, it doesn't matter, you just take all the bolts off. If you don't have that alignment tool and you don't want to take the pump apart, always a good idea to take the pump apart. Yeah, just leave these inside bolts and that will come out as one unit. Someone's used gasket cement on there, which isn't a very good idea. Yeah. As you can see, it all flakes off. Yeah, if you get that flakiness in the transmission, it can cause troubles. And the inside and the outside bolts are a little bit different. The outside one's a little bit longer, just so you know. So we're going to have to clean all this gasket cement off these. Usually there's a little aluminium washer that goes on there that seals on it. But obviously this bloke didn't, whoever did it last didn't have those, so they usually come in your kit. Okay, there's the bell housing. See little worm trails there. And we've got the pump. We've got the separator plate and the pump. Here you've got a valve as well, which is a good idea to clean. So if you weren't taking the pump apart, you wouldn't be able to get that valve out to clean it, for the simple reason that to get it out you need to remove this pin, which comes up this way. If you weren't taking it apart, if you were just doing like a minor repair on it, changing clutches or something, you'd leave the inside ones on the bell housing and this whole unit would just come out as one. So that one's a little bit stuck on the gasket. I'll just grab the soft hammer. There we go. Pump assembly just comes out. You got your reverse clutch plates there. Let's see them. There's another one in the case there. And you've got your this one that's connected to the input shaft. They're your third clutch plates, and you've got your second clutch plates. Now we've got the planetary and the output shaft, and you can see the band in there as well, and the drum. And that's basically it. I'll just pull that out now just to show you. Got the governor support there. There's a little circlip on there. We just take that off. Someone's put it on backwards. I'll show you in a moment, so it's going to take a little bit to get it off. There we go. And you can see, the little, see how it's sort of tapered that way? They've put it in the backwards. I don't think transmission specialists work on these before. This is probably just a backyarder or someone, but you want to put that pointy bit outward so you can actually grab it when you got your circlip pliers. It just fits into that little groove. If it's on backwards, it just keeps sliding off, whereas the pointy bit sort of sits in there. So there's a little bit, you know, it'll just help you down the track. You have to muck around with it. This one actually came off quite easily, so not too much problem. We take out the governor support, and you can see it's got the 3 metal rings there. Important to check the case, because it can dig into the case there and wear a groove, especially if the bush on the case there is worn out. And there's a planetary gear in the output shaft. See that there? There's a little Torrington bearing in there. And now we've got the drum that the band runs on. Again, another little Torrington there that goes up against the case. And there we have the band. And it's a triple wrap band. You can see it's just one band that's actually got like slots cut out of it, so you can actually get more quicker pressure on the drum if you need it. And there you go. Case is all completely empty. You can see the little bush in there. We'll definitely replace that bush. Give this case a nice clean up. Make sure that the mating surface there with the valve body is nice and flat. There are no little steps or little chips come away. And we can start doing the repair on it, or reconditioning. Now I'm just going to do a quick inspection of the second drum. and you got this annulus or ring gear that goes, or the planetary runs on the inside of there. You always want to make sure that those notches are towards the outside. Sometimes they've got one notch, or they'll have two notches there. So important. I think they're probably lapped in a certain way, so you have to put them in that way. Space up, and we've got clutches. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this piston's probably almost as machined down as it can be. We might be able to machine it down and just get an extra clutch plate in there for him, just to make it a little bit heavier duty. Now those Teflon rings on the pump run in here, so a lot less likely to wear a groove in there. But that bush in there is very critical. It'll just stop it from moving around so much. Anyway, that doesn't look too bad, and we'll get the third clutch, if I can find my pliers. There we go. Now, very important to note the Sprag clutch. If you're holding the gear in your right hand, it'll be free anti-clockwise, and it'll lock clockwise. You can actually, the little Sprag clutch in there, if you see it in there, if you flip it over the other way, it'll work the opposite way. And what will happen when it changes through the gears, it'll just lock up the car when it hits that gear. I believe that's what happens. I've heard that happening, but anyway, just make sure that free anti-clockwise and it locks clockwise. So if you do pull, well, you have to pull it out to clean it up and check that it's not worn. Also the little Torrington bearing, this one's already been, one side will be worn, the other won't be worn, but this one's worn on both sides, so you can see someone's already flipped it over. And we'll just, what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clutch plates in there. You can get slightly thinner friction clutch plates, and that'll allow you to put an extra clutch plate in without having to machine the piston. The piston in this one, you can see it's almost flat down to the bottom, so you can't actually machine that one down very much at all to get another piston in, another clutch plate in. So I'll just quickly measure up, see if these are the, you can still see the printing on it, so it hasn't worn out very much at all. Now just to oomph it up a little bit, you can see I've got the high clutch, these other little clutch plates. These ones are actually 60 thou thick. There. And the original ones are 100 thou. So we'll replace those with these thinner ones. They're heavy duty ones as well. We'll end up getting an extra clutch plate in there, so you've got more surface area gripping on that, locking that clutch up. Another thing you can do, but I don't like doing it, is getting thinner steel plates. But what I found is the heat involved, especially in the heavy duty applications, those steel clutch plates will actually warp. So you want to leave them and just put extra clutch plates in there, about 67 thou thickness. You can get 50 thou, and they're all about 67 thou thickness. So it's just a preference, up to you, depends what you want to do, but I like to keep the steels the same thickness and put the slightly thinner friction clutch plates in. Just another little thing you can note, just the way that these operate, it's always got a pushing effect on one side, and you can actually see that those clutch plates, the little tooth has worn a step in there. I don't know if you can see that on the video, and the other side's got nothing, and that one's got a step on it. So these ones seem like they're in perfect condition. They've still got the printing on it. If you were going to reuse them, what you do is just flip those over 180 degrees, just so it's wearing on the other side, instead of where it's already worn that step. But ideally it would be better to replace the whole lot. Now, to get the selector shaft out, if you use a screwdriver, you'll end up actually damaging the housing or the shaft. So if you do need to replace that, if you don't have any special tool, you'll have to actually remove that whole shaft out by pulling the pin out, undoing the little nut on the other side, sliding it out, and then prying it out with a screwdriver. We've actually got this little tool that my old man made probably 30 odd years ago, where we actually screw it in, tap it in, screw it in like so, till you feel resistance on it. You don't want to keep going, and then we just wind it out. And there we go, ta-da! Seal is out. And there's a little seal on there. Just need to screw it out. There it is. But you can see the wall of it's very thin, so by putting a screwdriver in, you're only going to do damage. You're not going to even get it out. And they're a metal clad seal, so they're in pretty tight. Now, I've ran the stone over where the valve body sits, making sure it's nice and flat. You can see someone sort of known what they're doing, but for some reason they've put gasket cement everywhere, and you can see it's all flaking off. So that's probably the reason why it's come in today. So it's a good idea to just not use any Celastic, just use the gaskets that are in the kit. The kits aren't that expensive either, but not a good idea to put gasket cement in an automatic transmission. I think it actually flakes off and circulates through the transmission. So we're going to clean this case up clean all the gasket cement off, make sure the surfaces are nice and smooth and clean, and give it a bit of a wash. The little breather on it, quite often it's broken. Just tap that out. It's just plastic, it's just pressed in there, but you got to make sure it's got that little cap on it, otherwise you can get bugs and water and all sorts of stuff going in there. So worth replacing the little breather cap if you need to. I've already started to tap it out there before we clean that case. That the that little detent sleeve and the modulator sleeve run nice and easily in there. So you want to just, that's actually the one out of this side, but I like to just make sure it's running nice and evenly through there. In this one it's actually jamming up, so got to get some very fine grinding paste and just work that through. It might also have a little bit of gasket cement down there or whatever, I don't know, but that should work nice and freely through there. So it's actually the case that seems to be jamming up, because it runs nice and evenly through that one. I've turned that valve backwards, and without using any grinding paste, it's actually worked its way through slowly. It's important not to flog it out too much, but it has to be nice and free going in and out through there. The O-ring on the end there actually is the thing that seals it, so no need for Celastic, gasket cement or any other glues like that. Just the O-ring should be enough, unless it's actually damaged the housing in there, then you might use a little bit of Celastic on there.